around that same window of time from students, families, and staff in early 2020 about their desired daily experience. I think we had roughly about 500 participants in that process right before March of 2020. And leading up to that March of 2020 when schools were closed or moved to distance learning, the development of that desired daily experience document and the district theory of action was drafted but not finalized. We also did a development of the preliminary strategic directions of the board in May of 2020 and the development of the draft 3-year operational plan in the summer of 2020, which also acted really as a transition plan as we shifted to a new way of working during COVID-19, really that operational plan. We kind of put that out in front. The equity context analysis process in this last school year was also completed, which we've merged with our classroom to boardroom strategic planning process with TeamWorks. Since we began that strategic planning development, we've begun to restructure and redesign our work and even our leadership team. So, for example, we've changed our assistant superintendent structure to have more of direct line of reporting and accountability. We've redesigned our equity, our Department of Educational Equity. We've created an Office of Family Engagement. We've begun to refocus and further develop our instructional leadership work through the Center of Educational Leadership with the University of Washington. With our principals and central office leaders. And we've also, just last week, once again, spent some time updating the 3-year draft operational plan and the desired daily experience document with our learning leaders. Now, as board members, you have committed to working on your own development together as a board this past year. And we, as a system, have started to implement some new process tools and use new vocabulary to support successful implementation of this plan. We've done a lot with a lot more left to do, but made some significant shifts already to Osceola area schools with positive changes to come. So just a few more things to highlight before I turn it over to our facilitator. The steps for following the development of the roadmap tonight are included on page 1 of your packets. And once you have developed that strategic roadmap, which includes mission, vision, core values, and strategic directions, that's where we're focused tonight. The next steps will include gathering feedback about the draft strategic roadmap from stakeholders this fall. Our leadership team will continue to refine that 3-year operational plan and complete the vision cards, those measurement elements of the plan by early November. And the board will refine and take action on the strategic roadmap. Along with that will be a board 3-year plan as well, that board calendar that we've also had in draft form for a while. So as you know, we have limited time tonight, and we've worked hard to make the development of this tonight or this afternoon as efficient as possible and give you the materials and background information you need ahead of time to develop the roadmap. So your work tonight will help determine what the focus of our improvement work will be for roughly the next 3 to 5 years. And with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Christine Robluski from TeamWorks International, who will facilitate the process this afternoon. So thank you for being with us, Christine.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all, members of the board. It's nice to be here with you this afternoon. I have to pause myself there. I want to make sure that you all have access to the Google document that has the latest draft of the work session materials. It's version C. I think Sherry sent it all to you today. And the reason I wanted you to have access, similar to what we've done with the retreats, I'd like you to be able to go in there and add some of your notes and ideas. It makes it a little faster than us trying to do it on paper. And you will see that we've also added the option for you. There should be some blue dots as we move down to, for example, page 5. When we talk about refining the mission statement, which we'll get to in a minute. I wanted you to be able to cut and paste some dots so that we can have some quick and easy way to see where you're all sitting with some of your preferences before we begin discussion of each of the elements that we're going to go through this afternoon. So the packet, as Corey mentioned, Superintendent McIntyre mentioned, is really designed to help us walk through this in a more efficient manner than we might have done in the past, given that we have a condensed time frame. And you may recall, 4 of you were around in May last year when we tried to do this remotely, and we took the feedback that we received from you, Heather. I think we talked about this a little bit, and really tried to put it together in a way that makes it easier for you to see some of the choices that led up to the development of this draft document, the materials that led into these options that were developed for you with the administrative team, especially with Michael Lehan here to my left. We've been working in concert very closely with your administrative team to really take the information that we've received over the last year and a half, the themes, the specific suggestions, and put them into this roadmap. So this really caps off much of the work that's going to come together for your strategic planning process. I expect that you're pretty anxious to see those vision cards so that you can see how those measurements will show how you're progressing toward your vision, and you will get that. In this document, we've tried to show you some examples of the measures and metrics that you might be seeing on those vision cards, and that's why we have Mr. Lehan with us here today as well, so that he can talk us through that. I am hoping to keep us on time, and I expect that we'll spend most of our time talking about, from backwards up, strategic directions and core values, and your vision, because you currently don't have a vision statement. You do have a mission statement. You do have some core values, and working with the cabinet through all the materials, there are some suggested revisions to the core values. But I think the bulk of our time will be on the strategic directions and vision, and a smaller amount of time on visions and mission and core values. Are you agreeable to that? I just want to make sure that you're all okay with that. So I'll keep us on time. I'll try to manage that as best we can so that we can work through the schedule this afternoon. And I keep wanting to say evening, and I apologize if I end up saying evening at some point. So as we page through the document, you'll see that there are certain governance and management responsibilities as part of our Teamworks classroom to boardroom process. We talked this over with you a few different times now, but really it's distinguishing between what's the work of governance, you all, and what's the work of the management team in terms of the products of the strategic planning process. So as we look on, I'm sorry, I'm going to be doing two things here so that your viewing audience can kind of hopefully see the packet. On page 2 of the packet, you'll see where we're distinguishing those. So we have the governance responsibilities is the strategic roadmap and that 3-year board agenda that Corey just mentioned. And then the management responsibilities are those vision cards, the measures and metrics, which you will be seeing, of course, as part of the monitoring reports that come up to you as a board. The district 3-year operational plan, which is how are we managing and monitoring implementation of all the different initiatives in the district? And then the school and department improvement plans. And those are to come. You have your departments already that are starting to develop 3-year department plans based off of the draft 3-year operational plan. And your principals will be gearing up to have 3-year school plans starting next year, so that that's all in place. You also have that desired daily experience document that will be a backstop to you as a board as you make decisions. Are these the experiences that are going to result from the decisions we want and that our stakeholders want? And so those are the main components of strategic planning as we move forward. And then, as we mentioned, the strategic roadmap is really around you setting the focus for the work, for the organization. What are the priorities, especially those strategic directions, what many would consider goals or objectives in another type of strategic plan? It's really you as a board saying, these are the 4 to 5 things that we want our improvement work to focus on. You have the standard work that's occurring in your classrooms. That's part of a continuous improvement process. But this is really around, as we look at our major improvement work over the district, this is how we as a board believe the organization needs to focus its time and efforts and resources, maybe redirecting resources, getting new resources. And so that's what we're going to do here today. You see on page 3, we have a half filled in strategic roadmap based on your current mission statement and your current core values. There isn't a vision statement, and I did not put in the strategic directions that the board had developed, those preliminary strategic directions in this document, given the conversations you all have had around your table and the work that your administrative team led by Mr. Lehan and Mr. McIntyre. You will see that the strategic directions have evolved over the last year and a half, and the suggestions for what can be included in the strategic directions. So if we start with the mission statement, I think we will be able to get through that fairly quickly. And on page 5 is where you'll find the current mission statement, along with 3 different options for you for the mission statement. What I would suggest is that we have you take a look at each of the options. If you want to use one of those dots each, you maybe cut and paste a dot to your preferred option, A, B, or C. You can do that so that we just get a visual sense of where you're all at. And then I would propose that you have a discussion around the table about why you prefer the option. So the current mission statement, I think, as you all know very well, is our mission is to inspire and prepare all students with the confidence, courage, and competence to achieve their dreams, contribute to community, and engage in a lifetime of learning. As we worked through the process and the different feedback that we heard from stakeholders, from students to staff to families to your leadership team members, and the vocabulary we've heard across the district, is there was a discussion and debate about should it be preparing each student, each and every student, or every student instead of all students. There's been a shift in the district's vocabulary toward those words instead. And so that's where we wanted to give you those options and see where you all land as a school board. Other than that, there wasn't a lot of recommendations to change your mission statement in any major way. The mission statement is really long-term. It states the purpose of the district, and most districts tend not to change their mission statement very frequently unless something is off. I once worked with a district where learning was nowhere in their mission statement, and they decided they needed to include that as we did the strategic planning process. So we're starting to get a sense from you all where you're sitting. I wonder if I should hand it back to Ms. Dawson-Walton to facilitate this part of the discussion on the mission statement.
Okay, sure. So does everybody?
What document are we using?
Oh, go into shared with Are you logged in on your district or are you logged in on your individual?
Okay, so during the course of our conversation
Okay.
tonight, I'm going to refer most of my input to the desired daily experiences input, because I think that was just such a critical piece of input. And I think what was very resounding in the content and information from students was really the focus on the individual, when they were really kind of asking about more opportunities, more rigor, equal opportunity, equal access. And so I really think that pivoting from all, which is kind of a generic delivery of education, into language, either each and every, really, I think they're the same thing, each versus each and every. So I think that makes sense for us to be thinking about.
I chose option C because I think each is important as education turns to a more individualized model to develop each student. And I think every student is important here to signal the inclusivity that we have in making sure that every student from every bit of diversity is also recognized and we're not leaving anybody behind.
Director Brooks?
I also went with option C. I really liked that this one encompassed both the unique needs of individual students, and also I think with that word every also encompasses the need to look at all students as we intended to do in the original mission statement. So I thought it was a good balance, and I would support that one.
Thank you, Director Douglas.
So I selected option B for every student because when we look at like what each is signified, each is individual, and I think that we've put emphasis on that, but this is our mission statement for our entire community, not for individuals. And so my idea was that we would have our mission be more geared toward the broader community and then focus in more in our vision. So those are my comments.
Director Muscatine.
I chose option C, mostly for similar reasons as many of my colleagues. I do like the inclusivity and that the community aspect of the every. And I also want to make sure that we are saying loud and clear that every single student is included in that. So I believe that each and every encompasses that better.
Thank you. I would say that I also chose option C. Every, to me, is another way to say all. That's how I view it. And each, of course, as we've all articulated, is individual. And so I think when I think about our district's mission, because I do love our mission so much, I think I really see both, because it is a both and. It's like, and that's why I think people do gravitate to our district, and where we're trying to go is that we're encompassing everyone, and yet we understand that it is important to kind of really call out, like, each one of you matter, each one of our scholars, students matter, so that's where I would see.
So as you think about this, and as we had conversations with the cabinet about this, there was there were preferences with different members of the cabinet. The question that I was asking them is, are any of these out of the question for you? And if one of these preferences, maybe the majority lean toward, are you willing to support, say, option C? If maybe option A or B was your preference, do you think you can live with option C, even if A or B was your preference? That's some of the dialogue we can have, too, to say, well, so Director Douglas, for example, there is every in option C, and I'm wondering if each and every would satisfy your desire to make sure that every student is included.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would be okay with that. I mean, it's really a debate of semantics, really, because what really it amounts to me, is how we proceed. And as long as we're making sure that our intentionality is in our words and our actions, then whether it's all, each, or every is not as important, as long as what we're actually doing is supporting every student.
Okay. And I don't know that you want to take a vote on every, or we have a good sense of where we want to go with
Everybody's comfortable
There's-
moving
it's pretty
forward.
clear
Yeah,
consensus.
there's consensus, so.
All right.
Christine, can I add one comment? So the one thing about the packet and the materials you have now, it's really kind of dry in the sense it's text. And we will be working, once the board gives us direction on these items, we'll begin to, like, graphically, visually, how do we make this appealing? Our old branding from prior times, we'll begin to take that on. So I always want to point that out, that right now it's just content and not how we are going to deliver it. I love how you said that. So don't want to lose track of, it's a little just texty right now.
It's very texty right now. It will look beautiful eventually. All right. So if we were to keep moving then down to developing the district vision statement, you will see that we have a number of options for you there on page 6. And the vision is more about over the lifetime of this strategic plan. What is your vision as a board, as a district? And again, this vision statement was developed with input that came out of the desired daily experience descriptions, out of a lot of conversations. At one point with the cabinet, I think we had something like 10 options, and we thought that would probably be too many for you, and there was some redundancy there. So if you would, again, copy and paste a dot, and so that we can visually see where your preferences are. Since you don't currently have a vision statement, these are relatively small vision statements. They can be long, they can be short. Some districts have a bulleted vision statement. And perhaps there's an option you prefer, but you'd like to see it edited.
Option E.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I don't like any of these, but
Same.
I'd like maybe a combo.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well.
I would like to submit that we change the word brilliance to full potential.
So it sounds like, it looks like two of you have some preferences. I'll propose this. If you would like to provide another option and write it in the notes below, please feel free to do that, because that can be part of the dialogue with the board here as well.
Should we talk, or should we keep typing on the page?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, let's, Director Grady, do you want to go and, we can just,
Yeah, I
don't have
mean,
to call in people, just.
I think option C is closest to where we need to be. But, you know, like I said, I really like the idea of full potential rather than brilliance, because brilliance is specific, specific outcome versus full potential is really recognizing everybody's each inherent worth and value and potential.
I like brilliance because I feel that's become a word that our district has purposely selected to describe our scholars as describing potential, that we're wanting to unleash the brilliance that's already in them. So I feel like it's a more inspirational word. And Michael, I think this is the word that you've really created and brought and grown in the district. I think there's just something unique about that. Full potential feels, to me personally, that I feel like that's a little dry, and I want this to be inspirational. And I just like, I love brilliance because I think about like that spark. That it's just better imagery to me.
Other thoughts?
If I can comment on that, two words that have come up through stakeholders as well, has been brilliance and excellence. So that has kind of surfaced.
Those are
through
the
all
two words, if I could combine like maybe an A and B, like that brilliance and that excellence. And I like the unleash that Director Sanders. Sorry, Director Mosquito Jones, you were going to say something.
Well, I was gonna say that I think I think brilliance for me has more of that growth mindset of you can always shine brighter, right? You can always, I also like that brilliance can be more than just one type of intelligence. And so it's not just, you know, super high MCA scores, or it's not just, so that's why I like the term brilliance, or I prefer a couple of things I was thinking of. I like unleash and enhance the brilliance of our scholars, as to have both those words in there. The other thing, I like including diverse voices, or however we're gonna say that. Developing our people feels a little, I'm not sure what that means. Or, I mean, I think I know what it means, but that doesn't mean everybody would. Like, do we mean our school family, our school community? How would we talk that? But I kind of like the concept behind that, so that's kind of where I'm at with some of these. But I like the excellence piece too.
I like trying not to put too much in it, because
Yep.
I did some research on other top-tier districts or benchmark districts or competitive districts on their visions, and it's often kind of a really specific, short, inspirational, higher order. And so I like that we're kind of pulling out the words that we like, and I think maybe we can craft something different from that. I mean, I like things like stimulate extraordinary achievement was one, that every student discover their possibilities and thrive. So that's kind of where I'm thinking for my input on this.
There was conversation about the word spark as well. So that was in the mix. If you said that word, that was one that we wrestled with, is where can it fit? How does it fit? And I think we also talked about it's almost like a short catchphrase or moniker. I don't know how to use the right words. Christine, you can help me with that. But we were really cognizant about these getting too lengthy. So we like the shorter, the more memorable it is, the more maybe inspirational it can be. Or
And-
themes that we had talked about.
Think about it this way, if the strategic plan is successful, and this board has had its mark on what is the vision that you hope this district will achieve by the time the strategic plan is fully implemented? So what does that look like in a statement for you?
For that, I really like keeping in there, breaking down barriers. Because I kind of think in terms of our strategic plan, that's where we're at this point for so many of our students.
Yeah, so our job is to educate, not break down barriers. So I think that we really need to keep our focus on academic excellence and creating students, scholars who can move on into the world with, their full potential met. Like, I keep thinking about how many times kids say, I wasn't prepared for this when they get to college or their career or whatever it is. There's so many things that they're missing, and so focusing on the skills that they need to thrive in our community and elevate our community, I think is where our priority needs to be.
I think the vision, I think there's, again, like not packing too much in there. I think a lot of the other elements being discussed are how we do that and might come out in our values and in our strategies. But I really think something short and inspirational, what we really envision for the students' outcome should be the focus, not the extra stuff on the how we do that. That's in a different place in this work.
Right, and the how really will show itself in that 3-year operational plan.
Yeah,
And
this
that
is like the
vision.
aspiration,
Yeah.
like this is big, like.
Yeah.
should just give you like the, yes, like that's why I love the word brilliance and excellence, because I think it really, it's moving, it's like, that's where we want to go, so I
Try to capture, to spark the brilliance and excellence, to prepare our students for an ever-changing world. I like kind of where you were going with, they got to be prepared for whatever that is, and it's changing all the time, but whatever it is, right?
Wait, is that a new option?
Well,
Yeah, I kind
Yes,
of.
it is.
I just need it
This
in
is a
writing.
work session, we're just kind of working through it.
I mashed some together there.
Yeah.
I think our mission kind of does the prepare, though, because we've already said what we're preparing them for. That's why it's like the vision, I'm kind of just is one step up from that.
My
It says the highest inspirational, then the mission, and then the how.
Director Brooks, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Director Simons immediately mentioned Michael with the word brilliance, because when I read option A, I almost felt like I've heard you say that word for word at some point.
Same thing.
I
Or
actually really
trademark
liked, I really liked option B and C, but I agree that a lot of this is the kind of how we get there versus the end goal. But yeah, there were some things that I think really stuck out to me, and the breaking down barriers. That again is that how, but I think that's something that we are working to do, and will likely always be working to do. And then the developing inquisitive minds who will change the world. To me, that's what education is all about. So, I'm still waiting for Corey or Kelsey to finish that, or Christine. to finish that one.
So I'm hearing some preferences. I've heard some suggestions for combining A and B and C. And some of the words that you really like are brilliance, excellence, opportunities, access, potentially spark, and the thrive.
Thrive, I
There we
like
go. And when we did this with the cabinet, Michael and I were laughing a couple of minutes ago here, because we could go to as many as 20 options for you probably, and you're doing some of the same. So thrive, excellence, unleash, enhance, some desire to focus on academics. Some of you like the idea of breaking down barriers, and maybe it belongs, maybe it doesn't. How about the including diverse voices? Where does that fit here?
So I think that access would potentially get to the breaking down barriers. So I'm just looking, I'm still waiting to see what comes after that.
I don't know if that's-
I did like the future forward looking. What was it that you said, Corey, about?
Well, I initially
Ever-changing
said
world
to
or
prepare
something
for, but maybe it's to thrive in.
Yeah.
To thrive in an ever-changing world, or to thrive in, or to thrive and change the world,
I
right?
like that.
It could be an and,
That's
because
amazing.
you got to bring it home at the end, right?
Mhm.
Because like most visions aren't,
Yeah.
they don't get into the, like I just look at Minneapolis as like every child college and career ready. You know, I mean, it's like, they're all like real, and then they get into the values, like the how, and so I do, yeah, so I like that. What did you say?
Well, I think
You wrote it
it's,
down?
the first part, I think, is close, and then it's to help, maybe it's just to thrive and change the world. Take some ins and ands out, like,
That's what I was gonna say. I don't know about this curiosity. I like the word curiosity, but the way the sentence reads, it feels like it doesn't fit there.
It seems a little too simple, like I wish there was a, like where it's going, but
Yeah.
the
Okay.
word itself.
Yeah.
So I just wrote this down here. How about creating opportunities for excellence and unleashing and enhancing the brilliance of our scholars? So we're creating those opportunities, which would include breaking down barriers for those opportunities. We're getting the excellence, it needs wordsmithing, obviously. But then we have the unleash and enhance the brilliance of our scholars.
What about just to unleash and enhance the brilliance of our scholars?
Just that? That's kind of what I was thinking originally.
Unleash and enhance the brilliance of our scholars to thrive and
to thrive and
change
change
the
the
world.
world.
Yeah, I really like the thrive and change the world piece.
Me too.
like
Instead
the
of
word
curiosity,
Yeah.
instead of curiosity, do we mean lifelong learners? And would that be appropriate here or in a different
That's in our
place?
mission, though.
I think,
we're gonna
yeah,
get
it's
there.
already in the mission, so it feels a little overdone.
So I like what Christine's captured so far.
Oh, gosh,
This one here, the one that it's highlighted.
Well, sorry, starting with unleash. Unleash and enhance the brilliance of our scholars to thrive and change the world.
This part.
Is that what we said just a few moments ago?
Yeah.
I like that. I like
I
it's
do
just
too.
It's very
Clear.
simple, but also very inspiring.
Yep.
So just
it.
as simple as this.
Yep.
yeah.
Unleash and
Columbia Heights is all belong, all succeed.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, really short.
I like
almost
that a lot, you
tagline,
guys.
You know,
I
So,
like that.
everybody good?
This feels
Good.
like us.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is great.
I like it.
all right, let me make sure that
Should we
I
put our
highlight
dots
this.
by it?
Unanimous
that'd be a
dots.
bad
Yeah.
idea, it's on record.
This is the one. This is it.
Put my dot there.
Okay. All the dots?
Christine put all of our dots.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
All right,
Okay.
so, good. And we'll move on.
Sorry.
And I am just,
Heather's having fun
we
there.
have
I
some
don't know what
other
I'm doing.
options here. So now we're going to move on. Are you okay if I delete the other thinking here?
Yeah, it's a little
All good.
chaotic.
There.
Okay.
Here we go. All right, so then when we move to page 7 of the packet, we're starting to talk about the core values. And as I think about this and the conversations you've had around the board table when we've done some of your development around board values, you had indicated that you really want to have the district's values drive some of your expectations and some of the board values first. That's some of what you had talked about previously. And so now, as you set, again, the direction for the district over the coming years, these value options, and you'll see that there are two distinctly different formats here between A and B for the options that were developed. And I expect we'll have a conversation here about some of the values and the wording that resonates with you and that maybe doesn't. This came out of, again, some of the desired daily experience documents that you saw, the conversations that have occurred, and it builds on the core values you already have in the district. So you can see that if we go back up to page 4, we've highlighted in red the suggested edits. In particular, the values regarding trust, the wording on everyone benefits when cultural differences are acknowledged, everyone can learn more. It's not that those don't apply anymore, it's more around how do you want to illustrate the core values of the district. So this was the attempt at keeping some of these themes and ideas and some of the exact wording, especially around everyone having equal intrinsic value. I've even heard that mentioned at some of your board meetings recently. And changing and refining a few of those other core values. So you can see that option A is really changing to, instead of what we believe, it's what we believe in as a district, and having more active phrasing around engaging in lifelong learning, valuing the worth of each person, sustaining relationships, intentionally including diverse and informed perspectives, acknowledging and understanding cultural differences, treating each person respectfully and equitably, creating, monitoring, and sustaining meaningful partnerships, and holding yourselves accountable for individual and collective results, to a different format there where we state the value and then explain what it means in this district. So collective strength, self-reflection and exploration, collaboration, accountability, and inclusive decision-making. Similar values expressed in both of these. Wording is different, formatting is different. So I don't know if you'd like to use the dot exercise to indicate by option A or B if you have a preference toward one or the other, and then we can have a conversation just like we did around the vision statement to really get into what resonates with you as a board individually and collectively.
So I'm sorry, I just have to say, you're right, this is so texty, it's so difficult for me to do it like this. But I noticed in one part, it was asking about possibly changing the phrase "we believe." And I didn't see like really an alternate proposed idea. And so I had an idea of, now I gotta go back, I gotta switch between the document that I typed in and our educational philosophy was the words that I came up with as an idea.
And some of the other things I saw words like our commitments or our core values. So I think that something should be there. I don't think it should be eliminated.
I don't know why I can't.
If you look at option A, just it was was added to rather than we believe, it was we believe in. That was just the really
Oh, yeah, I
minor
missed
change-
that.
Okay.
very minor change there.
But I like the grouping. I just don't know that it captures everything it could or should. Again, missing some inspiration, missing the student, focusing on the student. I feel like this is kind of like, this is what the district will do and be on students. I'm not really feeling the students truly come through because, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe, would we say these values should permeate every level? It should permeate what we see on the walls of our schools. It should permeate how we hold our students to these standards. This is everybody's standards, everybody's values, right?
This is everybody's standards, and the expectation when we think about that desired daily experience is focusing on students as your purpose, your mission, right? Everything is around helping your students be successful, but also making sure that for families and staff, they are living, breathing these same values, and you hold yourselves as staff members to these values and expectations as well, and that you do the same with and for families and partnerships.
I mean, some of the things that really, when I was, again, looking at some other options, because I'm thinking if we think about our families, they're going to look at this, and then they're going to look at other options and say, is this the district that's going to best serve my student? And so some of the things I saw elsewhere a bit more inspirational. We will expect the best of everyone. We will not compromise excellence. We will honor the dignity of each person. There's achievement, collaboration, community, integrity, respect. I feel like we're missing the mark a bit here, personally.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, some of the things that I just wrote down, like, just like key words, not real like phrases, but student-centered, the best in academics, foster trust and relationship building with collaboration, integrity, transparency, especially because we keep talking about that. I feel like that really needs to be a part of this. And then that we're purposeful, forward-thinking, proactive, intentional, responsible, resourceful, especially because a lot of our schools use that language, responsible and resourceful. And then I also noticed that a lot of top-ranked schools really focus in their core values on achievement and character building type things.
Yes. One of the things I saw throughout the input from the students from high school was connectedness. That one hasn't shown up yet anywhere, and I felt like that's something that they're asking for, seeking, and is important to them.
I think
Collaboration.
that I really like the way that it's divided up here and defined so we're defining our values. And I think the piece that I feel like, and Tanya just said it too, about connection, is that relationship building piece. That would be a strong value of our district. And words, then that's a good place for words like respect and trust and cultural competency.
So I've added some of those phrases that, and the actual,
Sorry.
yeah, no, that's okay. And the words that you've been, that you say resonate with you, either building off of the input that you've received or what you've been thinking about as board members in the district. So I'm adding those in. We can certainly try to do the values on the fly. I'd love to hear from other board members about what's resonating with you, because one of the things that we can do is take another crack at the values so that we can move on to some of these other contents of the strategic roadmap and have the conversation about that if you like, because you will be getting to the point where you will be getting more feedback on the roadmap once it's in place, and you will be acting on the roadmap at a future date. So I'd want to get a sense from other board members where you sit with those values, and again, which ones resonate and which ones don't.
Dr. Brooks or Ms. Gator-Jones, do you have anything you'd want to add?
I'll be, I think, probably quick and easy. So I liked the simplicity and the grouping of option B. Every word that has been thrown out from everyone that's talked so far, I mean, our values and things that I certainly agree with. When the values list gets to be like a page long, I think that's where I struggle. To me, like, it should be something that each of us can cite. By memory, that our students can cite, our teachers. That's what's ideal to me. So if we can find some way to maybe pick the top 5 or something, or maybe the top 5 categories or groups, like, that's, I think, what I would look for.
Okay.
Totally
But I
agree.
agree with everything that's been said, so.
I also like the grouping. I like these, and I like the way they're described. And I can see the appeal of having something that might be a little more, might resonate more with just the average parent. Whatever the heck that is. Because I was also looking at some of the other districts and, like communities in there and equity and integrity and, but I like, these are, the only one that I see that I saw in other districts was the collaboration one. I kind of like that these are, not the general everybody else. I like the collective strength. I think that has a good message for our students, and that kind of gives a community asset-based feel to it. I don't know, I kind of like these.
I mean, I do, I think that, like, I think of my own place of employment, like, I know our core values. They're in everything that we do, from performance reviews, I mean, to every aspect of it. And so it is, I do agree, like, we need to have something that we can kind of always go back to. And so I think that's missing for me is I love the student-centered. I think we talk about it all the time, and I think it needs to just be at our core. And the other one that stuck out to me that came up is that relationship. There was another, connectedness, that, something like that. Like, I just think, we talk about it all the time, like, the relationships in our community, the engagement, that kind of piece is so core to our district. That kind of trust/transparency piece, those are the ones that really stick out to me, so.
Yeah, it feels like the collaboration gets at that relationship piece and the connectedness piece, and maybe we just need to change the word.
Yeah, I'm not sure collaboration, like, gets to it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe instead of inclusive decision-making, that one is more about collaboration. There's some overlap there, just to tease those two out, because I like the idea of having 5 values.
Yeah, it's easy to
Inclusive
like
collaboration.
Remember.
I do like the idea of like concise, like the way option B is grouped. Like the basics is very, and then it elaborates a little bit. I like that better than the way option A is laid out.
Yeah.
But I don't think that option B gets at the heart of what we're trying to,
It's not there yet.
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess like the way I think about it is these would be on the wall of every school.
Yep.
And it means this in every school and for every student. And it might be, like for an adult, it means this. For teachers, like, it's the same 5 things
Yeah.
and
Yep.
it just looks like a different, right? But we're all believing in the same things and we're all holding ourselves accountable. We're rising
Yeah.
up to
Yeah.
these values.
Like, yeah, like excellence and high expectations, or,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that.
And to that point, that our students can also understand and relate to,
Yeah.
including our elementary
Yes,
kids
exactly.
that would probably be more likely to recite these values,
Yes.
so.
And what we've had to this point, it's in this room, it's over in the corner. Our mission, goals, strategies, and core values, and those are in many rooms in the district, but it's including all those, it's all 4 of those in one piece. As I'm listening to this, our conversation as trying to pull this together is, we were trying to honor what have our stakeholder groups, what surfaced to the top, right? So it was our best effort to try to capture what they told us. I like the concept of how can we simplify it a bit more? And then, to me, it's, what do we expect from each other or of each other? And what do we expect in how we interact or treat each other as well? Because there's some things in there, just how are we going to behave with one another, right? Because in the mission and vision, we've had like, here's the outcomes we're aiming for. How do we get there? Those are some themes that have kind of stuck with me as we've listened to our stakeholders. It's a little bit, well, here's how we need to like get there with behavior with one another, whether it's students or staff or families or community. I don't know if that's helpful, but.
Yeah, I think, and that kind of gets into character side. What's the character
Yeah.
that we're going to hold ourselves to? And student to student, adult to adult. I like us all saying we hold ourselves. And actually, this came out in the feedback that that students wanted their teachers to be held accountable to the same standards they are. And this is one set of standards for everybody, which I think would be really amazing for us.
So, based on what I'm hearing, it sounds like you would like to see a similar format to option B. And some of these value statements resonate with you, but you'd like to see a little bit more, and some of the words, and I've included them in blue below, especially the ones that you all, more than one of you have said really resonates with you, being, excuse me, my voice is going, student-centered, transparency, connectedness, relationship building, trust. Some of the multiple of you have commented on, but your ideas have been included here. What we can do is take the ideas that you've expressed tonight and make adjustments to B based on what we've heard around the table and bring them back to you. Michael, did you have some suggestions?
No, I think that so I guess yes, because I'm still talking. Looking at these core values, and now that we landed on a place with the vision statement, I think that obviously we want every part to flow together, so I think there's opportunities to think differently and certainly refine the core values to make sure the document flows well. A question I do have is, if we look at some of the option B, any of the bolded language there, if there's anything that we would consider keeping in the document, or if we want potentially a new slate of 5.
I agree. I think a new slate.
I like collective strength, and I like self-reflection and exploration.
There's a disconnect with me between collective strength and the text that comes after it. I think I would be fine with collective strength. I think we need to relook at what comes after it.
What was
Go ahead.
What was interesting in the students' feedback, there was so much about unique opportunities, more opportunities. I do like exploration. I thought there was a theme of exploration there, but there's this tension of strong individualism and like individual potential and, individualized learning or, unique opportunities balanced with the connection. So I'm struggling with the collective word, but I think that there's whatever the right word is that kind of captures both the individual and the community.
I've just added something in there. Again, the wording, based, Thomas, on what you were saying, I'm just wondering, do you believe in collective and individual strength?
I mean, I think we've already agreed to that at some point today. And yeah, I think the text behind it, I think what was confusing is that in bold it said collective strength, but then it talked about kind of the individualized part of it. So I just, needed that to be further reviewed and wordsmithed.
When I think about collective strength, I think about like how we come together as a community and like build each other up together. But like Thomas said, the words behind it is each member, it starts off automatically individual versus together.
I think about a sports team.
Yeah, yeah, I do. And actually, while I was looking at like school rankings and trying to see like what our top-rated schools in the nation have for their mission and their vision and core values and stuff, one thing I came across just anecdotally is that in Minnesota, Osseo is actually ranked, Osseo area schools is ranked very highly in community, sports community. So that's actually kind of interesting. But-
Music, too.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't
Multiple
one of the-
analogies, yes.
Yeah.
Not just sports.
There's many, yeah. That wasn't on the list, though, of like things that,
Actually,
because
music.
it was like a list of like things that families seek in schools. And a strong community is one of them.
Well, it's in our mission statement, so it should follow through our values.
Yeah.
So we have a sense, work toward a format similar to option B, refine it with the suggestions from the board members around the table today, and bring that back.
And very clear, I heard, Thomas, you brought this up, like, it can be every single student at every age level can identify with the words.
Yep.
And one of the things that I can say, what some of the other districts that we work with do is they have, this is what it looks like in elementary school,
Yes.
right? The schools work toward that. This is what it looks like at middle school and high school. This is what it looks like around the conference table at the
It's the same
staff
word.
level. Right, yeah,
Look-
same word,
will
but
look
this is what it
different.
means, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I also was kind of thinking, like, trust and transparency, I feel kind of go hand in hand. So I don't know if we can somehow have that be together, but also trust goes with relationship building, so.
Does that fit under integrity?
I like integrity.
Yeah, it does, I think.
That's when I found in another list.
I like integrity.
Yeah. So
I just think whatever-
called them out,
No, go.
I was just gonna say, the reason I separated those from integrity was because those are things that we hear separately from our community all the time.
Yeah.
That's all I was gonna say.
I just would love like to be able to say, have the words without like a lot of, I mean, of course there's gonna be some exclamation, but like a lot of, like, that's why for me, like collective strength, I'm like, I mean, it's not that of course I think.
Yeah.
Collective, but I'm like, you have to feel, kind of think about it. I mean, we should just be able to say,
Yeah.
yeah, what it is.
This is what
Exactly.
it is and this is what it means.
Yeah.
Okay. We will take your feedback and make adjustments to option B, significant adjustments, and bring them back to you for your consideration. All right. I'm looking at the superintendent to see if, am I
Yeah,
on track with that?
absolutely. That's why we're doing this. It's perfect.
And
Okay.
I want to be clear, like, we're not, like, there's been so much work that's gone into this, but, you know, for us, like, when you add up all those hours, we've never actually sat down and had a conversation about, like, the report of what our students said. So I feel like this is the first time we're actually having real conversation about all of that information that's been coming toward us. So I just want to convey, like, I really appreciate the work put in the recommendations, and it built this conversation that we're having now.
Good.
Thank you for saying that.
And this is your work. This is, these pieces of the plan are really the parts you own as the board, right?
And feel free to use those documents as you move forward, and the ECAP data, all of the information that you have that you can be referencing to say, this is, you know, we have evidence to point us in certain directions. So good, I'm glad it was helpful, and we will bring this back to you
I do
after
have
refinement.
one more thing.
Sure.
So there's a word that we use in almost every meeting that is nowhere in this document at all, and that's equity. And I think what we have so far is okay, but I would at minimal like us to include inclusion and the core values in some way. And maybe it's a different word, maybe it's just that word, but
Like equity and access, or I don't know.
Our current core values say individuals are treated respectfully and equitably. That's in our current list of core values.
I agree with you. And again, like the right
It's on the
word
left.
that's inspirational, for some reason, like I always gravitate toward belong, because everybody belongs when we're inclusive. And we aspire everybody
I'd
to
be
belong.
good with that.
Yep.
I like that.
Yeah, the equimetrics surveys were really consistent, that diversity and equity and inclusion were lacking in most spaces. So those, yeah, I think that's a good point, to bring those words in. And I think that's what I was trying to get to with the cultural competency as well, and the relationship building.
So inclusive decision-making is not enough. We need to be more intentional about belonging.
Well, I think we don't really, like, when we're talking about these 5 things here, we wanted to kind of like start over. So then I think what Thomas is saying is to make sure we still include something along those lines.
Okay.
But not inclusive decision-making.
Different actual words,
Is that
right?
going to work in a kindergarten room?
The part about
Actually,
the-
yes, it would.
the
They
part
know what
about-
include means,
Well,
and
yeah.
they know what making a decision is.
That's true, that's true.
I do like belong though, because it's like really across the table, you know?
It's kind of a long phrase, and that's what we're not wanting, but in that inclusive decision-making where we say diverse voices and perspectives are respectfully included, so we try to get at diverse and inclusive.
Yep.
But it's wordy.
Well, I like, sorry, one, and then I'll be quiet. Like belong, like everybody's ideas belong, everybody's bodies belong. Like I feel like it can transcend like all of those pieces. And again, like when we say belong, it can mean different things for the different levels.
It also has that feeling piece behind it.
That's what
Yeah,
I was
I
just
want
gonna say.
feeling.
It makes you feel like you're welcomed and you're like supposed to be there, you know? And that goes towards the community building and relationship building and.
It should evoke inspiration and feeling and emotion, like it should. You should be like, we're proud that these are our values we stand behind.
Yep.
Yep.
And I will say, it's helpful to hear you all have this discussion
Yeah.
as we move back into saying what really resonates with you. You are
I
the,
think when you get to like equity, diversity, all the, it starts to become a little, I mean, people are so, they're just like, oh, yeah. But I think like something like belong, it does, it has the feeling and the, yeah.
Evokes a little more emotion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little more thoughtful, less minded.
Yeah.
I think I do just have that question in the back of my mind, though, that as a community member, if I weren't sitting at this table and didn't see equity anywhere and the mission, vision, or core values, like, I would maybe question if the district was serious about it. And so, yeah, I don't know what we do with that, but that's just,
Well, let's keep going through and then,
concern.
yeah, let's, because keep that in mind, and then as we go through, maybe it will, we can revisit it.
We will definitely bring
Well,
a new version back to you.
I was gonna say, even if those specific words aren't in this step, there's so much more that's gonna be part of that, that we can
Yeah,
mesh it
it'll
together.
show up in strategic initiatives and even
That's what I
our
was gonna say.
departmental plans.
Yeah.
But we can.
But
Well,
I
but
hear you.
yeah, and we can have 6, I mean, we can, I think if we have 4 to 6 values,
You have directions
that's
coming up.
still
Yeah.
digestible.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, but how far should someone have to dig in order to find a commitment to equity?
I know, I'm with you 100%. I think equity should be one of those.
Well, I think it would be kind of like that thing has all that information. It would still be a part of the package or whatever poster, right? Or am I thinking?
I just
about this
think equity can mean so many things to different people. I like when it's plain language. It says equity to us means everybody belongs.
Right.
And so for me, I don't see a issue with the word equity not being there, because I think the essence, like what it really means, what we can all say it means, is more clear. But that's just my
And
perspective.
it is, in essence, letter B of the strategic directions that you might feel differently about it once we get to that point. And if you're still not there, then we can go back and figure out, how it might fit better.
I
I mean,
expect,
it's more than belonging. And we don't have to get into that full discussion today, but as much as I love belonging and want it in there, like, equity is so much more than that. I mean,
But I would love to like go through this, because I would like to see how, because it's like one thing to have a word, but what's the action behind it? So I'd like to just, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I'd like to kind of see what is behind it. Not that you'd have to dig deeper, but just because I'm trying to get the full I want to hear the discussion to get a full picture.
and here's what we can do. So you like the format for option B. We've heard
Yes.
a lot of what you'd like to see in the next iteration of this. And so I anticipate that we'll give you a new version, 2 different options of this version, so that you can decide which of the values in the statements really resonates. And being able to see them side by side helps you to be able to say, yeah, this is what we like. And you might still end up with a hybrid of the new version. But that way we can make sure that you all get to see whether it's stated as clearly as equity with the statement behind it, whether it's belonging, but we will provide those to you so that you can have one more conversation around the table around equity, inclusion, belonging, and the words that you think fit with your core values as a district.
And to add to that, I think that it sounds like a clear, transparent definition of equity might be important to that process.
There was a consideration, even just building a lexicon of some of the words that we use that might show up in this document and some other pieces as well, just so that there's a universal understanding of how we're using the words and the intentionality of the words that we use. And Director Brooks, in regard to the notion, the equity, that was one of those pieces. If we say that we believe in equity, wrestling with this notion of tokenism, of just naming it, rather than how foundational is it woven in the document, and if it is, do we have to name it? So that was, rather than ways of being, that would elicit this notion of equity. But I certainly get your point, and we'll rework it and see what we come up with.
All right. And what we are striving to do is to change core process and practice as a result of this strategic plan and the work that you all are going to be putting into implementing it. So if we move on then to the next component, which is the last component of the work for the work session, at least my part of it, is identifying those strategic directions. So the strategic directions is really you as a system saying, here's where we're going to invest our time, energy, resources over the course of the life of this strategic plan in terms of our improvement work. And so what we've done for you, you see the table, is we've identified the general categories some of the proposed strategic direction wording in the column that's highlighted with lavender behind it. And we've added more information for you to hopefully help you decide which direction you want to go with each of these strategic directions. We generally recommend 4 to 5 strategic directions. I've seen a district go to as few as 3. Generally, districts land on 4 or 5. I know when we were talking last year with the board that was in place, we had about 6, and we've combined a couple of them for you into one strategic direction, and you can find those under strategic direction B. But you'll see that then we have a column with some of the desired improvements that came out through the strategic planning in the ECAP process, which has led us to why do we need this strategic direction? Why do we need to focus our attention here? Some of the initiatives that are in the draft operational plan that support that strategic direction. And then, as you see in the last column, some of the likely key performance indicators that would be included on the vision cards. That is an idea at this point, not a clear commitment, but most of those are likely to be on there as we've had those conversations and as they work on those draft documents. Corey or Michael, do you have anything else to add in terms of the information that's included in this table that you would like the board to know about before we get into the conversations about the wording of the strategic directions?
I think you captured it well. This is now getting focus, right? So this is the work to be done, right? This is now setting the direction for really kind of driving the work forward over the life of this plan, and then measures will come with these. Once these are set, now we can finalize the vision cards, but we needed this step to happen first. And I know it's wordy, but we want to give context, right? So that's why the table is designed this way. Give you a couple options, what's behind, what's the desire driving it. Some of the work we've already launched or in the middle of that connect to them, and some possible ways we're going to tie that to our accountability structure with the vision cards.
So you'll see here that the categories on the far left side are really around, and we do letter these just because it makes it easier on the one-page document when you're done. So you have 4 or 5 strategic directions. Not all of this material will be on your roadmap, but the notion is this is behind it. So you're going to have a portfolio of documents when you're done with your strategic plan, implementation documents, vision documents. This is the main document that you can share with everyone, partners, though it's probably what you'll see on posters around your building when it's graphically beautiful. So these strategic directions are really you telling the organization, this is what we want you to focus on for our improvement as a system. And so A is really around that whole student experience, everything from the school climate, the classroom climate, to activities, to opportunities, to engagement. The second category is really around the academic excellence and closing gaps for each and every student, now that we've landed on that for your mission. The third direction is around stakeholder engagement and communication, and talking with the cabinet members. There was a lot of conversation early on with the strategic plan around stakeholder engagement, but as we got input from your different stakeholders, there was a lot around we need better communication, more aligned communication as well. So that's why that's included. And then D, the fourth one, is around operational excellence, including all the structures that you have in place, everything from how you monitor and expand, enhance your enrollment and your planning, your finances, the systems that you have in place to support improvement work. And that's probably where you'll see more that is incumbent upon the administration team, staff, and the system. And then E is really around how do we enhance and support professional development, accountability across the system, partnerships, growth, performance. So those are the categories, and then you'll see that there's generally 2 or 3 different proposed options for wording. And again, we went around the table a few different times with the cabinet on this, pulling from all the documents. So if you have questions, let us know. What I suggest is that we go through each of the strategic direction categories, if you're amenable to that. Take them one at a time. so that we can land, hopefully, on a strategic direction for each category. And I'm looking to the board chair to say.
Yeah, I think we just need to keep it to probably 5 to 7 minutes so we can get done by 6. I have a question off the bat for consideration. One of the things that I've always kind of wondered is, ever since I became on the board, we use interchangeably student and scholar, and I feel like we need to be consistent. And so I just am kind of throwing that out there, not to get into at the second, but just for some consideration as we roll this out. I think that's really important because I think we need to be consistent, so.
And I agree with you, and
I
does
agree.
the board have a preference?
I agree.
Scholar.
Well, I'm curious of how Scholar came to be, kind of, like, Michael, I know, just wondering.
It is used
That's
pretty
the-
widely.
That's
Scholar.
Osseo excellence
But-
term right there.
I like Scholar. It's just, I think, really difficult to, like, stay consistent with it. I mean,
Because we're used to using student.
student, yeah.
Well, if everyone agrees, I'd really like to hear Michael's perspective on it, since he really kind of, I think, took the lead using that, and it kind of grew from there. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Sir, no worries. I think and Heather, as you alluded to, it really came from this notion of Osseo excellence. As we thought about what our mission was at Osseo Senior High School, where we wanted to go, and then we developed Vision 2020 that had a lot of different pathways, and what we were developing was excellence. And we wanted scholars who were going to interact and make meaningful change in the world. And so first, that starts with harnessing one's individual brilliance, their individual talents, their skills. And as we think about that, learning is a social process. And if I'm a teacher, that doesn't mean that I'm the keeper of all knowledge. That means that those around me also have a tremendous knowledge base that they can provide to me. So it's more of a communal standpoint of a scholar is a communal learning social experience, and that we all contribute to the environment of brilliance.
I like it. I personally really like the word, just because, like, I think about with my own kids, and in all the kids that I've helped rear in the childcare centers and nannying and all the different things, when you consistently use words that have meaning like that, they rise up. And it just happens. So if you are constantly telling a kid, regardless of what their IQ is, if you just are telling them all the time, you're a genius, they're going to rise up. And so I really like the use of that word.
I was talking to an adult the other day, probably 45, and shared a little bit about their K-12 experience, and they could remember vividly their science teacher who referred to them as scholars. This is a 45-year-old. So I'm not suggesting that we need to use that terminology. That's just what I used during my tenure as principal, and it's obviously stuck with me in this role, and that's how I see these babies. It also reminds me about what my moral obligation is as an educator.
My input to the board would be scholar implies more of a learning mindset. Student brings with it a little more of a technical, it's attendance, it's reporting. That is the vocabulary that is used by the state, so we will still need to use it in some ways because it's tied to funding, it's tied to attendance, it's tied to those things. But if your desire is to change that tone to more of a learning connotation, then I think scholar brings that.
Yeah, I think that's where it gets tricky is I think I always want to lead with that term, but when I see it in documents, it's almost always student. And so that's where, I mean, it's difficult to stay consistent.
But I think we have the opportunity in our own strategic directions.
Yeah.
Of course, yes, when we report
Well,
something.
We were just talking the other day, the language in this whole document was so foreign or uncomfortable 2 months ago. We used different vocabulary, but now, 2 years later, our whole learning leaders are using words like strategic directions, and we had to change the vocabulary. It was painful. We're not there, but we are. Christine came over during the session and said, they're talking the vocabulary, they're talking it, right? It's working,
It's starting to shift
so we can get there.
and adopting the framework. So I'm hearing a preference for.
Well, I just wanted to hear from Dr. Grady and Simons. Would you have any preference, or do you?
I think Michael Lehan makes a really strong argument for Scholar,
Yeah.
but I agree that it's a little bit awkward because I sort of embrace myself as a student too, so.
I like Scholar. I'm interested in how your students felt about that word at Osseo. Like, is that something that students embrace? I'd just be like, maybe like before we make a final decision, I'd like to understand if students.
Sure. You know, and I don't want to overgeneralize, but I remember having a lot of great conversations kind of early on. Some of which would come up to me and say, Lehan, what in the world is a scholar, right? What is that? And so there's that opportunity to name it. And then as we build context, they define that for themselves, and then they own that identity going forward. And I have notes in my office from graduated seniors that said, you know, thank you for calling me a scholar. And there's even a picture that I had that I signed my emails that I would communicate out to the scholars. And that's, you know, dear scholars, that's how I sent every single communication. So it was an identity. I can't say that everybody appreciated it, but I know that many folks took that on as their identity and appreciated that, the responsibility that also came with it.
Sold.
I would say I
Well, Heather,
have
you had
an
kids there, so.
Osseo junior right now. And yeah, she's always appreciated it. It's never even been a question.
Well, as a parent, I think it's awesome because I think, to what Heather said, it raises the bar almost, you know, and like, it's like what you kind of label and say, to me, it resonates with excellence to me. And so that's why it really, I appreciate that, the term.
I'm glad that we had this discussion because it's been a mental battle for me. So I know-
Me too.
Now I know, like, scholar.
I can just attest to the fact that pre-K students also like the term scholar and will live up to that. The other thing I was thinking is, I think scholar implies critical thinking skills, which I think is something that we've all, you know, really wanted to do, and that collaborative nature of the critical thinking and the dialogue and the discourse, I think. It just is a better word, in my opinion.
We will change the document to reflect scholar versus student. And if you find a reference to student here, we expect it to be highlighted and brought to our attention.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay,
Chair Dawson-Walt.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you. I'm glad to hear that we're having a good dialogue around the table here. So now on to the strategic directions. Less fun to talk about perhaps, but necessary nonetheless. So strategic direction A, again, as we worked to develop this document, thinking about what we've heard through the strategic planning process, there was a lot building up to this around that whole student experience. Yes, we're going to talk about the student academic experience in the next strategic direction as that category, but this is really around how do you build that climate and the experience so that students have opportunities, have the environment. And so that's why you have these options here. If you look under A, you have create educational environments where students' voices are lifted and each scholar is welcomed, cared for, respected, and supported. Option B under there, I guess, is support high-quality access and opportunity for each scholar, or close opportunity gaps and create welcoming and inclusive educational environments. So that's, again, we had many more that we condensed, combined, and if you have preferences around these, it would be good to know, or if you'd like us to make adjustments.
When I'm looking at it, I look at the first one, create educational environments, but I would change it to say, create educational environments where individual voices are lifted and each scholar is welcomed, cared for, respected, and supported.
I'm just going to add some of those in color. That's a new change, okay?
Yeah, I like the words safe, welcoming, and inclusive in that one. kind of a word salad there, but
Safe, welcoming, and inclusive.
creating educational environments that are safe, welcoming, and inclusive. And then, still keeping the piece about lifting each scholar's voice.
So it would be option A, and then it would be each scholar is, what did you say, Tamara?
Let's see, I'm trying to, so
Safe.
create safe, welcoming, inclusive educational environments where individual or each scholar's voices are lifted, et cetera. Lifted and welcome.
So this is adding.
I'm not a fan of any of them. I think there's nice words in each one, but they only speak about climate. They're not really talking about activities or engagement or excellence or challenge or innovation or creativity. So
Yeah.
when I think about it, I'm like, when a student walks in, what is this, how do we describe the environment they're being surrounded by? And even under the desired improvement, all four things are kind of basically saying the same thing repeatedly, and again, talking one element of climate and isn't necessarily consistent with what the students told us about high expectations. And some of this will get into the academic side,
Yeah.
but this is like the more holistic, more arts, more sports. I don't feel like it's really connecting to what our scholars said.
Does that fit under that high-quality access? It's just not detailed enough.
It's
I think
it's
that,
just speak.
I think that student climate is essential that we address. I'm looking at other places here. And this seems like the best place to do it. Our ECAP data and the equimetrics data were really clear that regardless of the opportunities that are available to students, that doesn't matter if they don't feel safe and welcome in school. And so I think that that's paramount.
Other thoughts?
Well, I think I hear what you're saying and I agree to a point. The thing that keeps coming in my head when you say safe is that I think that we have a very diverse idea of what safe means within our community. And so I have reservations about using that specific language. Because like when I think of safety, I'm thinking usually like physical safety, well-being, that kind of stuff. But that's not what everybody thinks of as safe. And we're seeing that pretty consistently in our inbox from our constituents who, we've got multiple viewpoints coming in and both feel that their way is the safe way to address certain issues. And so that creates a conflict when I think about that word.
Right. Well, I really mean safe in the context of being in a discrimination-free environment that feels safe, that's free of racism and homophobia and transphobia and ableism. And so that's what I mean by safe.
Yeah. If I can offer what we heard from the input on the desired daily experience and some of the descriptions that we offer in that draft are really around both the physical and social emotional safety that we heard from students across the board. No matter what your political affiliate, that we heard, consistently from students and from families in particular, that they really want to have a safe, welcoming environment for physically, emotionally, socially, emotionally connectedness, all those things you were talking about with the values as well. They all kind of align to each other.
But when I think about a climate, to me, it's like we want our students engaged.
Yes.
I mean, that's just I think the more engaged you can be in your community, your school, your experience is just going to be so much better.
I wrote down your word belonging here. And there was a little bit of, you want kids to feel like.
Piggybacking off of what Kelsey said is, one thing I keep thinking about is like student responsibility for their own learning, like creating a culture of their desire to be leaders in their own learning.
I think that'll come into academic excellence.
I think it will. but when she was talking
But
about the
yeah,
climate,
engage.
like creating that culture.
I actually 100% agree. Like, to me, this is about creating a culture of engagement. Sports create engagement, the arts create engagement, the differentiation, tons of input about Spanish. So yes, everybody asked for safety and welcoming, but that's not the only thing. There were many, many more things in here. So I feel like we've taken that sliver and said, this is what defines climate, and I think we've really missed everything else that they said.
Director Mosqueda Jones or Brooks, do you have anything to add?
I have nothing for this one. I mean, everyone said everything, so.
I was just trying to wordsmith some things that Christine's playing around with right now with the purple. That was me.
Yeah,
School
I was
spirit
around with
came up
yours.
a lot.
So I agree that I don't believe safe, welcoming, and inclusive is enough. Like, I think it's important. I think someone said paramount, but it's not enough. So I would like to see what you come up with from the words you have in the ad section.
Mhm.
Could be something closer to, we're not there, but create safe, welcoming, inclusive environments that fosters creativity, innovation, and engagement.
There you
I
go.
like- That's it.
Okay, Corey,
I do really
Yeah.
like that.
say that again.
I had belonging.
Yeah, say it one more time, and then I have another thought.
Create safe and create safe, welcoming, and inclusive environment. I don't know if you want educational environment, but an environments that foster creativity, innovation, and engagement. In whatever order those
Check.
want to come in, it could be engagement first.
So a thought that I just had, I like that a lot, is an issue that we face all the time, which is the division of the east and west side of our district. And we often talk about making ourselves be one district, and I think that falls under climate. And I don't know how to put that in there, but I just thought I'd put that out there.
Innovation and creativity are similar words. I like creativity, and I like adding something about that.
Yeah.
What would that be?
The brilliant wordsmithers maybe can come up with it.
Yeah. I don't know how to encompass all of
Global?
that.
There's something about global, and
Yeah.
I haven't seen that anywhere. Like, the fact that we have so many,
Universal.
not universal. I always think about going into Northview Middle School and that map, and just like seeing how many cultures come in and are represented.
Yeah.
I think that's something about culture, global. There's something there that maybe belongs in this one.
Yeah.
Corey, what are you thinking?
Well, culture, yeah, because there was that's in the next, that's where I saw it, building a culture.
Global citizenry?
Does that belong? Come back to.
Can we just do-
I keep
Mess with
coming
that.
back to like one district or like somehow like a unified community. And that's not the right words, but
That is the climate we want to create. Engagement, creativity, maybe innovation is similar or different, but something, we're capitalizing on the fact that we've got
Collective.
so many
Well, that
global
collective strength
perspectives.
that we talked
Yeah.
about in,
Maybe it comes in excellence.
So-
Add it to the list.
Yeah, a twist off of what.
We're close.
What Corey has offered, it's in red now, it's the second option, I guess, the new second option. Create safe, welcoming, and inclusive learning environments that foster global curiosity, belonging, innovation, and engagement.
Well, curiosity. is
say
that
that,
what you
can you say that again?
There's something I have about
Oh, you
curiosity.
wrote it out,
Yeah.
sorry.
Create safe, welcoming, and inclusive learning environments. I did add learning there for you, sorry. That foster global curiosity, belonging, innovation, and engagement.
So I think that reads beautifully. And because I'm thinking about the vision cards, because that's going to rest with me. So, I mean, there could be so many things measured with that. Yes. So I can appreciate that if that's a strategic direction. And I would need help honing in exactly what those measurements
I think we
and
can-
metrics would be.
Good point, and I think we can get there.
Okay. I believe we can.
And I
I
think-
just,
Maybe the
I
word
think that's a
global
good point, though.
is kind of the sticking point, because that throws another dimension
Right.
literally
Yep.
in there.
All right.
Maybe that can go elsewhere.
Good, because then let's move
I
on
think
to
we're good.
20 minutes.
Yep. Thank you, ma'am, for keeping us on track. down to B. Oh, I'm going to underline that one just as a reminder. So B is really around, really focusing in on academic excellence for students, and that is including closing gaps, right? Eliminating gaps in your district so that each and every scholar is able to achieve a high-quality education as they are in and leaving Osseo Public Schools. So you have 3 options here, as you can see, and I see Tamara's already in there.
Oh, I was just going to fix scholar.
Should say Director Grady.
So I just had a thought based on, well, Thomas had made a comment about as a parent, if he's looking at our school and looking at these things, what would he think? And I noticed through my research prior to this meeting that Osseo is not ranked very highly in academics compared to other schools. And so when I think about like having the closing and eradicating educational gaps, achievement gaps, opportunity gaps, all of them, I think that's critical to the work that we're doing, but I'm wondering if that's what we want on that page, because as a parent, you might look at it and say, oh, maybe they're not doing so hot academically, and maybe choose to go somewhere else. That's just a thought that just I had after Thomas had said that.
So in these directions, just as a reminder, this is your telling the rest of the this is what we're going to focus on for our improvement work.
I think it's really important if we're going to be leaders in academic excellence that we name and address the highly predictable outcomes of racial disparities.
And I'm just reminding you, I'm not making the decision. So I'm hearing what you have to say. I'm not hearing an adjustment in the wording yet, so I'm going to listen for what you all are saying to each other.
I'll just say I love option A.
What do you mean?
My question, we're on B, right?
Yeah.
All right,
Strategic
so-
direction B,
The first.
the first
no.
option, yeah.
Okay, I'm like, wait, look at the wrong document.
My question for Michael, and I'm fine with the way that it's written now, is and racially necessary in that one, given that historically predictable outcomes would address that? But I think it's just a thought, but I'm fine with the way that it's written. Yeah, this is the one I like. By
So,
far.
sorry,
Go ahead.
did I
Okay.
interrupt you?
No, I'm done.
So I view closing gaps as the outcome, not the strategy. So you close the gap by having a high levels of rigor for all, different paths, variety. So to me, that's the outcome. It's not the strategy. And even the historically predictable, like boys are doing worse than ever, and that may not actually fall into a historical group, but if you've seen how our boys are performing across all demographics, we have not discussed it, and it's shocking. So again, like I think that falls in the outcomes, and I would love to see us have a very strong statement about we will not be satisfied until there are no achievement gaps. Failure is a gap of any kind.
Right.
We do not just want small incremental progress. So to me, this is about academic excellence and what that means for being rigorous, for all, a rigorous education for all students. Some of the things I saw was content-rich, rigorous, and personalized education. Encourage student, staff, and administration to reach their highest levels of personal achievement. And it came out over and over again, a lot of comments about no more busy work, less busy work, more rigor, more challenge, more access to experts. So I think again, I feel like we're a little off the mark when we're thinking about it through the lens of what a student is asking for academic excellence, and what a parent might look at our document versus other options and say, this is what they're saying, this is what you're saying.
I agree, we need to have our focus on achievement, academic excellence, and opportunities to get there.
What piece of this is tied to funding in terms of identifying the racial achievement gap? Because there's some wording that has to be done that way, at least the way the metrics are reported. Do we need to be tied to that?
No.
I don't think it needs to be in your language for this.
Okay.
We just got to make the connection to that.
Metrics are and
Yeah. Right.
the other strategies of those are, okay.
One other little comment, I think we took a look at the board's legislative platform statement. We were looking at a lot of things, and you had some language that's in that left column under. That's a little bit reflective of what you had kind of landed on at that point in time. But I'm hearing words like rigorous, excellence, personalized or personalized achievement, challenging, opportunity. Or if you're-
High
Maybe you're already
expectations for
capturing
all.
that, Christine.
You've got some of that high level of rigor for all, closing gaps, content-rich, rigorous, high levels of personalized achievement. I will let you know this, many districts that we've worked with over the last few years are talking about, personalized education, and then they're struggling with how they define that, and what is the system that they have in place. So I'm just giving you that caution, because we're working with a lot of them, as they say, we've been saying that phrase for many years now, but we don't have a clear sense consistently across our district of what that means to us.
Yeah, and to me, like time and again, we haven't come back for almost 2 years to really talk about it, but some of the work around the individual goal setting, and learning plan's not the right word, I'll have to go back and pull up my documents, but it's like, this is my path through. It doesn't, because I do get like, they're struggling to be like, I have a class of 30 kids, individualized for you, individualized, and like, that is difficult to execute, but it's like, my path for me and my goals looks like this through the system. For me, it means a global language. It means maybe one of the pathways. It means, and every student knows, or it changes, but every student has a goal. Every student has autonomy and empowerment that they're setting their course.
Yeah, I really like that too, especially because I'm sure, Michael, you can attest to how many of our high schoolers get close to graduation and they have no idea what they're doing, and you've got like a handful who've done their college tours as juniors and a bunch who didn't even know they should be thinking about it yet. So I really like that, that whole concept.
And I'm seeing Director Mosqueda Jones is in there making some edits as we talk. So I'm hearing two things, including a preference for some of the language in that the first bolded black option up there, and new language. So we need to find some new strategic direction that fits both of those, is what I'm hearing. And I'm looking to the rest of the
That's
board.
what I would like. I love including rigor. I think that's a consistent need across the district, regardless of which school you're in. The individualized pathways, I think that's something that we're always chasing after. But I don't know how effective we can be with the more rigorous education without addressing what's bolded in that first option.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what the end result looks like in incorporating all of that, but that would be ideal for me.
I guess I get a little frustrated that it's, I mean, I think we've all, we can't like keep romanticizing it, like, I don't know if it's right to put the closing, eradicating racial and other educational gaps as a strategy when, like, we know, I mean, we talk about it all the time, and I'm like, I just want to see it in a place where we know there's going to be like boots on the ground, like action toward it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to romanticize it. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody talks about it, and I'm just like, really, what we want is academic excellence for each of our students, and high expectations and excellence, and they're not students, actually, they're scholars now. So, there you go. But we can't lose that, but I'm not sure that's where it fits. Like, we
Yeah.
need to, like, keep that, kind of like other
I
northern
think
stars.
you lost me with the romanticize. Can you
Because
clarify what
it's
you mean
like,
by
it's
that?
like, that's what everybody talks about, like, it's like, oh, the achievement gap, and what are we gonna do, and like, every time I see a study or report, it hasn't changed, the dial hasn't moved, so I'm like, let's not romanticize it and like talk about it, let's actually put it in a place in these priorities that is the focus, like, because I think we've all kind of talked about, we have a lot of different focuses right now, and like, as this solidifies, like, then that is going to be tied to all the things that we do. So I just don't know, I don't think it should be right there with and. I think it needs to be somewhere though, somehow.
Column 2, I think,
Okay.
or column 4 as a result. But I think-
Yeah, I really think the results, because if you put it into that results category, like, that's our driving, we have to get here. Not like we're gonna keep saying, yeah, we're gonna close the achievement gap, and then we don't have a way to get there. The other part is the way to get there, and the result is the gap is closed.
The way to get there should be what in the strategic direction wording is. And because then everybody has the same alignment net as to closing the achievement gap means this strategic direction.
Right.
I like personalized achievement over personalized learning. I think there's something there.
I do too.
Okay, we have 10 minutes left. Jackie, did you get to say something? Or you were typing everything in? Do you want to say
I
something out loud though?
Typed most of my
Okay.
stuff in.
Okay. And I'm,
You're in red?
I'm in purple. I like the build a culture of achievement as the beginning part of a statement. But I think, I guess I was thinking like build a culture of achievement by providing content-rich, rigorous, personalized education for each and every scholar. And then I feel like we should say removing barriers and creating new paths to address those predictable gaps. It's not solidified in my brain yet, but I do think we need to make sure we have something that says we're attacking the predictable gaps. Or
what's provided in red does not include, Director Simons, some of what you were talking about with individual pathways, so I haven't added that yet, but this is combining some of what you have preferred, provide an excellent, rigorous, and culturally relevant educational experience for each and every scholar where historically predictable outcomes and barriers are eliminated.
Yeah,
Sounds like a lot.
I like Jackie's.
I like Jackie's better as well.
Jackie's goes more to what we're going to do. And if we do it, it'll address those things versus
Yeah.
naming the negative
Right.
instead of affirming the positive, right? Does that make sense? Like, here's what we're committing, here's what we're going to do. If we do it well
Yeah.
enough, it'll take.
we need to remove barriers and we need to create new pathways. We have too many students from too many different backgrounds not succeeding in the way that we're not unleashing their brilliance, let's just say that. And so, and I do think we need to for sure address the racially predictive. And we also know that our EL students are not doing so great. And we know that the educational system was set up for, is currently set up mostly for females. So there's a lot of pieces there that I think.
The creating new pathways certainly speaks to the work that's being done right now of building a better future. So
Yeah,
there's
that's kind of
some
what I'm thinking with.
very nice alignment there.
I would just want to be specific. So if we're saying removing barriers, what barriers are we going to specifically say we're removing? Or
Well, that's the operational plan, not the strategic direction, so they would have to
Well-
figure out which barriers.
But that's what I'm saying, like, build a
That's-
culture of achievement is clear to me, because it's, like, removing a barrier is still very general, it can mean different things to different people, so I don't want, like, whenever somebody reads whatever is in the gray column, it should be very clear what it is to everybody, it shouldn't be like, it might mean this, it might mean that, it might be this, it might be, so, that's my only, like, I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying, like, could we say specifically what it is, what barrier we're removing?
You could say the same thing about pathways. that
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
different- I'm just.
that's my same feedback, yep.
Yeah, I'm just, we know that there are barriers to success for students, and the educational experts could name, several. For instance, making kids sit for long periods of time at a desk is a barrier.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of naming specific barriers
I don't think we should name. yeah.
because there are too many. like, for, it just really is such an individual thing, which is why I kind of am wondering, like, if we should even have that language, if there's a different way to get at that.
Well, I think there's two pieces to this. There's the whole general meta-analysis of what we want students and academic excellence to look like. And there's also the strategy that needs to come along with that to address barriers for students or the racial achievement gap.
And if
And the
I,
opportunity gap. And that gap also exists for LGBTQ students or scholars as well. So I think it's really important, if we're going to be strategic about fixing these problems, that we do need to name them in our strategy, as well as create actionable steps and identify some of the barriers that persist to keep things the way they are.
so if I can offer,
Next.
some of the barriers are going to be, at a systemic administrative level, some are going to be at a board level, some are going to be many at the student level. And so it's multiple levels, multiple layers. And I think that will come out through your operational plan and your vision cards as well. And then the priorities you set, over each year as you talk about what is our learning work. We are close. We have 4 minutes left.
And
I have
Tim's in here, so.
taken
That means we gotta go.
Director Mosqueda Jones's suggestion and added in, you'll see in purple, bulleted with a line underneath, build a culture of achievement by providing culturally relevant, evidence-based, and rigorous experience, removing barriers and creating new pathways for scholars. It's a lot in there. I think we still need to massage it, but we don't have time to do that yet. Does this lean toward where you want to go?
Yeah.
For some of you.
I still go back to the original one that is a little higher, but it's close.
Yeah, I prefer the one that says building a culture of achievement by providing content-rich, rigorous, personalized education, individualized pathways for each and every scholar, because it's like really concise.
All right, so the two underlined ones I'm hearing are preferences that we need to find a way to streamline. All right, we will work on that. How about, do we want to move to get at least C done?
We won't.
Don't have the time.
No. So what would be now that we have 3 left?
Well,
We should add
what I-
another.
the one I thought you would have the easiest time with is D. It's our operational excellence, financial structure enrollment, so I could be
Yes.
wrong about that. But my sense,
I like the first option.
yeah.
too.
Yeah, same.
All
You'd
right.
all have done that one.
there we go.
Good, all right, well, look
All
at,
right?
we have,
I need to copy and paste our dots into that one?
Yeah.
Nope, no copying, pasting dots. And then that leaves us with C and E, which I'm sure your agendas are full, but maybe we can bring back just a couple of these elements at some point.
And is there some work we could do, could you add some, like this document, for example, you could go in there with your comments and preferences with those dots
Yep.
and add any suggestions you have or language changes for those last 2.
Yep.
We can look for those commonalities.
Knowing that your preferences,
homework?
what you're drawn to and what repels you, is going to be helpful to us.
all right. Well, thank you, we made a lot of progress, this feels really good. It feels like we made, it feels good. And this work session is adjourned at 5:59 PM. Don't forget to go vote.
Thanks, everybody.